Hey, truth seekers, welcome back. Zach here. It's November 18th, 2016. Have a very interesting post for you. We're going to begin with this Google Doodle that is before our eyes. There's something very interesting about this. Notice it says James Welch's 76th birthday. Can you make that out? James Welch's 76th birthday. This man was a white man who grew up in a native community and is remembered for being a popular fiction author about Native Americans. And him getting this tribute today, November 18th, which was his birthday, but this tribute coming at age 76 today in light of what's going on in the world, it is not a coincidence. By the end of this video, you're going to understand what this Google Doodle has to do with the Standing Rock Sioux protest in North Dakota over the pipeline that's going through their sacred land. And you're going to understand what it has to do with the World Series, which was won by the Chicago Cubs over the Cleveland Indians, the mocking mascot, the native face, bright red skin, big teeth. Cleveland Indians in gematria sums to 76, like this tribute coming at what would be age 76 for him. The Chicago Cubs, who defeated the Cleveland Indians. The general manager is Theo Epstein, who went to Yale, whose 43rd birthday is approaching. We'll talk about why his 43rd birthday matters. Real quick, here's what you need to know about today in regards to Yale and Skull and Bones, which Theo Epstein is a part of. Today, November 18th, is the 322nd day of the year in non-leap years. Yale, Skull and Bones, they identify by the number 322. Today is also the day that leaves 43 days left in the year. Yale equals 43. New Haven, CT, as you would write the address on an envelope, equals 43. The Bush political dynasty, they grew up in New Haven, Connecticut. They're all members of Skull and Bones. The two who were presidents, Senator Prescott Bush, the father of George H.W., a senator in the time of World War II, they're all members of Yale, Skull and Bones. Prescott Bush, he is rumored to have stolen Geronimo's skull from the museum it was in until the day it was stolen. And in 2009, it was reported that Yale and Skull and Bones were sued by Geronimo's family for stealing the skull, validating the rumor. So think about this. Skull and Bones, Native Americans, Theo Epstein, Yale, Skull and Bones. He wins the World Series now with the Cubs. He broke the curse with the Red Sox. He broke the curse with the Cubs. Did it over the Indians this time. There's a bigger riddle here. We're going to go through all of this. I'm going to show you what's so interesting about this man's birthday. He was born on a date with 43 numerology on November 18th. Again, Yale 43. Bush political dynasty. George W. Bush, the 43rd president. Jeb Bush, the 43rd governor of Florida. George H.W. Bush, the 43rd vice president. Also the 41st president. Skull and Bones equals 41. You know, a lot of people ask me how I figured out this whole thing that I figured out. And what it was years of paying attention, years of trying to research what is really going on in this world, who's responsible for the wrongdoing, and how we can figure out how to stop it. I have been working with that mindset since I was 18 years old, the day September 11th, 2001 happened. Because I knew that day I was lied to, I was being told false information to scare me, to make me go along with an agenda based on lies. Ever since that day, I have lived with the purpose of, putting an end to this. Because I don't like living in a world where I'm lied to, deceived, told to hate people who aren't responsible, the types of things that have been going on. And as a young man, I would get up and literally watch things like Meet the Press. I'd watch 60 Minutes on Sunday night. I thought out of the news publications out there, those were some of the programs where you could get the most relevant information, trying to figure out what was going on in this world. I realized the TV was bankrupt, but I thought some programs you could at least get some information you could work with. And, in real time, I was 20 years old when these interviews happened. As a 20-year-old, I said, okay, I see what's going on in this world. We have two men running for president, George W. Bush, who was the sitting president, versus John Kerry, the Democratic challenger, who admitted on Meet the Press that they were both members of Yale and Skull and Bones, this secret society that only allows 15 new members each year. And it reminds me, around this time, the movie came out, Skulls, which was about Skull and Bones. Paul Walker was in that movie. He drove a red Porsche. He ended up dying mysteriously in a red Porsche. Anyway, let's watch this interview. Let's hear them talk about the number 322, both George W. Bush and John Kerry. Notice how they laugh and snicker at our expense. In truth, I think these interviews were staged, and this is all part of the mocking, putting some truth before people's eyes, but laughing all the same. What to take away is what I just said and how these numbers are relevant. This secret society identifies by a number. So why? We'll get to that.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society. It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go
I'm
on.
sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the rest.
Number 322?
First of all, he's not the nominee. And, look, I look
Are you
forward.
prepared to lose?
No, I'm not going to lose.
You both were members of Skull and Bones, a secret society at Yale. What does that tell us? Not much, because it's a secret. Is there a secret handshake? Is there a secret code?
I wish there were something secret I could manifest.
322, secret number?
There are all kinds of secrets, Tim, but one thing is not a secret. I disagree with this president's direction that he's taking the country. We can do a better job, and I intend to do it.
And we'll be watching. Be safe on the campaign trail. John Kerry, thanks for joining us. And we'll be right back.
So in 2004, we literally had our final two contestants for the highest office in the land from the same secret society. Just think about it. I told my mom about those interviews in 2004 because she was so frightened that George W. Bush was going to get reelected. And I said, Mom, it's already a done deal. It doesn't matter who gets elected. These guys are from the same secret society. I ended up getting to show my mom that information, and it opened her eyes a little bit. You know? It's the kind of information people need. I mean, people should think about that. What does that tell you? So anyway, we're getting back to this riddle. We got to talk about the death of this author, the birth of this author, 76. Again, Robert Redbird did a video on this man earlier this year, dead at age 76. Oklahoma icon, Oklahoma in gematria sums to 76. He had a day, a holiday in the state named after him, June 7th, 2003. They call it Robert Redbird Day. June 7th can be written 7/6. You know, dead at 76, Oklahoma 76. He died in 2016, 13 years after the holiday's made after him. And think about it, 76, 7 plus 6 in numerology breaks down to 13. We'll be talking about the significance of 13, one of those important numbers to the Freemasons. He died 94 days after his birthday. You know what's interesting about that now? I documented then how his name equaled 94, dying 94 days after his birthday. The Cleveland Indians won 94 baseball games this year. 94. Got defeated in the World Series. And what am I telling you guys? The sports are scripted. We're living out a script. The sports are a planned distraction to go along with the agenda, propaganda-driven news. We're living out a big planned agenda by the numbers. And we're given numerical riddles, little coded imagery every day, like what's in front of Google Doodle. So here's this man getting tribute on his 76th birthday. I point out that November 18th in gematria sums to 96 like Freemasons. We're talking about the Masonic order, Skull and Bones, a Masonic order. This man born November 18th, Browning, Montana, dead August 4th, 2003 in Missoula, Montana. We'll be talking about Missoula. George Washington starting the genocide against the natives. Part of the riddle here, I think, most definitely, George W. Bush. We'll get to that. Remember, August 4th, 8/4, Obama's current birthday. United States of America equals 84. Divide and conquer equals 84. Order out of chaos equals 84. The Twilight Zone, 84. States in simple English sums to 84. So does Serling, the writer of the Twilight Zone. Obama in Jewish gematria equals 84. So does Jesuit, the Masonic order within the Catholic Church. So November 18th, the 322nd day of the year, the day leaving 43 days left in the year. In leap years, it's the 323rd day. Lucifer in Jewish gematria is 323. Interestingly, Satan is 232 in Jewish gematria. But Yale, again, 43, 322. Interesting how our calendar falls so nicely. Remember, Freemasonry equals 58, secret society 58, Gregorian 58, calendar 58. We're on the Gregorian calendar. We're living in a world that's been designed as we know it by Freemasons. There's a reason English is the language of the one world order. The one world order, the Illuminati, the New World Order. It's a Masonic, Zionist, Jesuit world order. Gematria of Yale, New Haven, Connecticut. Here's Jeb Bush, who was the 43rd governor of Florida. Here's George W., his brother, who was elected the 43rd president. Notice George W. Bush is born July 6th, the date that can be written 7/6. The word master equals 76. George Washington was a master mason. George W. Bush, George Washington. George Washington died at age 67. Notice July 6th is the 187th day of the year. George Washington equals 187. 187 homicide code. Master Mason president who started the genocide against the natives. This author who we're decoding right now, James Welch, he died in Missoula, Montana, which has gematria of 187 we'll get to. The father of Jeb and George W., George H.W., was the 41st president, the 43rd vice president, once the head of the CIA. Skull and bones equals 41. Like king, think King George. Like USA, 41's the 13th prime. 13 stripes, 13 colonies, 13 years of public school programming, telling you Christopher Columbus discovered a country where native people lived. And then a million other lies since. It's hard to know where the truth begins. You know? Where the lies started. If you ask me, we're living in a big box of lies. From history to science to spirituality. The day this man was born, the author we're decoding who got the tribute, he was born November 18th, 1940, a date with a life lesson number of 43. Yale, New Haven. His name in gematria, James Welch, sums to 36, 45, and 99. When you write out 13, it sums to 45 and 99. 36, 45, 99. 13, 45, 99. Again, skull and bones, 41, the 13th prime. A lot of things come back to 13. His initials, James Welch, JW. J's the 10th letter, W the 23rd, 33. Have you ever noticed that W is the only letter with multiple syllables? Every other letter is just a single syllable. W's W. Anyway, 33, very relevant. The alumni of Skull and Bones are called Bonesmen. Bonesman's 33, just like Masonry, just like secrecy. George W. Bush, born on a date with 33 birth numerology. 7/6/1946. 7 plus 6 is 13. Plus 1 more is 14. Plus 9 more is 23. Plus 4 more is 27. Plus 6 more is 33. 33. He graduated from Skull and Bones in 68, 33 years before becoming president in 2001. 68 was the year 911 was made the national emergency dialing code. World Trade Center construction began. 33, number of Freemason obsession, George Washington, Master Mason, 33rd degree. Tim Russert, who asked about 322, he reportedly died at age 58. Again, Freemasonry 58, Secret Society, George W. Bush, all equal 58. Died at 2:23 p.m. reportedly. Masonic and Jewish gematria sums to 223. The Synagogue of Satan sums to 223. He passed in Missoula, Montana. I'll link these posts below. You can go back and read the transcripts of these interviews from Meet the Press if you want. George W. Bush, the day he was asked about Skull and Bones with Russert was February 7th, 2004, a date with 33 numerology, you know, adding to the theory that it was all part of a script, part of a mocking by the numbers. When he asked John Kerry, it was August 31st. Date with 42 numerology, Freemason 42. 62 numerology, Mason 62, Pythagorean gematria here, simple English here. Watch my how-to gematria video in the description, very important. Tim Russert also died 227 weeks after the interview with George W. Bush. 22 divided by 7 gives you the number for pi, which is 3.14. Notice when you write out 22 divided by 7, it equals 314. You know, our language being based on mathematics, the mathematics of this world we live in. From the interview right here to his death, 227 weeks. So I'll link this post. There's a lot of important information here. Talk about Revelation, the coding of the number of the beast, what it has to do with the reporting of Tim Russert's death. I have older videos on this if you want to watch too. Anyhow, 322, 223, reflections of each other. The tribe right now that's protesting in North Dakota and losing the protest, the pipeline will be built. You know, in the end, it'll go down as another story of a failed protest, which is why they do this to us. The subtle message, the read between the lines message is, you know, protests are futile. The agenda will not be stopped. No one's land is sacred enough to stop the flow of oil. You know, we live in a world of profits over people. The native people who lived here centuries ago, they lived without money. They lived for community, quality of life. We here in this world, we live for money in a rigid system, a destructive system, a profit over people system. Anyway, the tribe is called the Standing Rock Sioux, which in gematria sums to 223. 223. Not all Standing Rock Sioux are protesting the pipeline. See, then they tried to start putting out these stories about how some people in the tribe aren't against it. Divide and conquer. Order out of chaos. If you decode the headlines with gematria, they'll often code 113. Those are the numbers for mainstream, dishonest, Scottish Rite Freemasonry. The word protest as well, which this is about. All throughout this nation, protests are purposefully staged, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with protest. As a society, we need to actually have real protests because the protests we hear about in this world, they're often staged for the sake of agenda, for pounding home a message. If you've never seen my video on the May Day 2012 protest in Seattle that made national news for breaking so much property, so many windows, that was all set up by our police. It was a made-for-TV scene. Order out of chaos, presenting a message, telling people why they shouldn't protest, you know, shaming it. So here's where we start to make a wild transition, seemingly. But these are things I documented this past summer during the time of the College World Series, when earlier this year I predicted in spring training that the Cubs would win the World Series, which came true. I didn't know it was going to be over the Indians, but by the time the playoffs started, it was clear that the Indians would be the opponent. I made a video at the beginning of the playoffs that said it should be Cubs over Indians in Game 7, which is exactly what happened. Not to mention all the other sports championships and more I called in the past year. But anyway, the College World Series, the deciding game, I documented why I thought Coastal Carolina would win because of the starting pitch being at 108. And I was also talking about how strange that was because I predicted in spring training the Cubs would win the World Series because of the 108-year drought. Again, Major League equals 108. There's 108 double stitches on a baseball, tallest building in Chicago, Sears Tower, now the Willis Tower, 108 stories, plus so many other things. So anyway, that stood out. Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, the name of the team, equals 108. They talked about how the rain delay was 2 hours and 23 minutes that pushed this start to the next day that they would start at 1:08. 2 hours and 23 minutes, you know. If you follow my work, these kind of things are reported often in sports, and when you pay attention, it becomes suspicious. The rain delay didn't need to be this long. They extended it longer than it needed to be, and then they called it by a long way to get it to 2 hours and 23 minutes. It was part of a tribute. What was amazing was the deciding game was 3 hours and 22 minutes long. 3-2-2 after the 2:23 delay. So, if you're thinking that's crazy, you know, you can script sports. You can keep them on a timer. In baseball, to buy time, you can take a long pause to get through a quick at bat. You can make sure, you know, the batsman is making a quick out. These things can all be done. And if you don't think college athletes can be sold out, you are mistaken. But check this out right here. Coastal Carolina Chanticleers equals 108. They won the College World Series, and the Cubs went on to win the World Series, breaking the 108-year drought. And remember, earlier in the year, I said why Alabama was going to beat Clemson in the championship and why the Broncos were going to beat the Carolina Panthers. Notice both college championship and professional championship, that's how they played out. Both of them, Carolina teams lost. A Carolina team also lost in the college basketball championship. But both Carolina football teams losing was no coincidence. The sum of the score in the college game was 85 points. National Football League equals 85. The coach of the Panthers, Ron Rivera, was a member of the 85 Bears that won the championship the last time the Chicago team won the Super Bowl. Chicago's the birthplace of the NFL, National Football League 85. Now the longest remaining drought in professional sports is the Cardinals, who were originally the Chicago Cardinals. But anyway, this all happened in the College World Series. The final score was 4-3, a lot like 43, the number for champion. Then what happened? Theo Epstein with the Cubs won the World Series at age 42, 57 days before his upcoming 43rd birthday. He won the 112th World Series November 2nd, 57 days before his upcoming 43rd birthday. World Series equals 57. Just like Willis Tower, which is 108 stories tall. You know, when you write out 42, his current age, it sums to 43. He's a member of Yale. Went to Yale. Skull and Bones. You see? Got a longer video on this. The man who hit the leadoff home run for the Cubs in Game 7, Dexter Fowler, look at his birthday. March 22nd, 322, or 22/3. From Atlanta, Georgia, on the 33rd parallel, ATL equals 33. So does Atlantis. Atlanta, named after the lost city of Atlantis. So I know this video is getting long. There's already a lot of information, but here's what we're going to do next. We're going to watch MrCatI attack my work. MrCatI has done this before in the middle of his videos, gone off in a rant about me. My message to MrCatI is, look, you and I are trying to, at least seemingly do the same work. Expose the lies in our media and show who is responsible. Should be held accountable. MrCatI, whenever he speaks about my work, he criticizes, he attacks, he mocks me. He says I'm here just for entertainment and views. Couldn't be further from the truth. You know, I'm investing a lot of my time, a lot of my energy, making a lot of sacrifice to do this work. And my motivation is to wake people up so that we can get beyond the lies. I'm sick of living in this world of lies. So anyway, when I first showed up on YouTube, when I didn't have any subscribers, MrCatI had nearly 20,000 subscribers. And a lot of people who found my work, which weren't that many back then, a common comment was, your work reminds me a little bit of MrCatI. So that's how I found out about MrCatI. So I'd check out his videos, and I thought his work was interesting. It seemed, a little bit disconnected. That would have been my criticism of his work when I first found it, but I thought it was interesting. I thought he was sharing some knowledge people weren't aware of. He was doing some simple gematria breakdowns, which is why people saw the similarity. So I messaged him several times. I commented on his videos, nice to him, shared with him what I knew, asked what else he knew about gematria. He never responded to me, never took the time of day to respond. The only time I've ever seen MrCatI acknowledge me is when he's attacking me. So let's watch what he says about my study, my work. He asks his viewers to question me certain things. I'm just going to answer his questions directly in this video because I know a lot of people watch both of our channels. So check this out. He was talking about Skull and Bones in this video. I'll link his video in the description if you want to watch it. And then he just goes off on a rant on me, and not for the first time.
If you look at the dates, the visit dates, please note this. 11 is 33. 10, 11, and 12 still adds to 33. So I knew, but I didn't say it because I try to keep the videos as short without You see, the numbers no longer impress me. I'm trying to gain something from these numbers that is much more complex than just, oh, there's a number. It stands for, the Freemasons are doing it. It's Illuminati. That's all crap.
So, he's talking to me, and what's sad is, many people have taken the time to make a video attacking my work and saying it's crap and it's nonsense and, I'm just making this up. I am revealing a language that existed thousands of years before I existed, that has been with all of us for all this time, and it's only known about in certain circles. It's important in Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism. It's known about by some Freemasons. There are people who are using this. They're using it every day, coded before our eyes. They're using it to script news. They're using it to rig elections. They're using it to plan and execute rigged sports. And more. Anyway, I just want you to see how he introduced his insult. He's going to go a lot further from here, but what he did at first was he counted up 11 plus 11 plus 11, so that's 33, and then he goes 10 plus 11 plus 12, that's 33, and then he starts to go into like a diatribe about how, but who cares? It's not that important. I'm not into stuff like that. First of all, has anyone ever seen me do a calculation like that? Have I ever added anything up like that just to get to 33? I mean, there is something interesting there that he's there for the days, the 11th day, or the 10th day, the 11th day, the 12th day, which does sum to 33. That is interesting. He is a bonesman. We talked about bonesman in 33. But anyway, I've never made anything so loose and then just said, see Freemasonry, like he did. I mean, if you're going to criticize somebody's work, be honest in your presentation. So let's just let him go on. There's more points to address here.
These numbers are more important than trying to become an entertainment channel, trying to inform people about these numbers as if it's entertainment. This is entertainment. And I would ask you, for all of these people and there's more than one, okay, there's plenty of channels out there that talk numbers, always blaming the Freemasons, always talking Illuminati. But they never ever, why is it they never discuss how are the Freemasons controlling all of these people that aren't Masons? You see, it's not.
So, let's just answer that question right there. How is Freemasonry controlling so much when there's people operating within this system who aren't Masons? Look, Freemasonry over time has been in power, and they've been building this world to meet their agenda. So we're living within this Masonic system that exists. We're raised with an education system that was built with a design, a purpose to educate us a certain way so that we think and believe a certain way and behave and obey a certain way. Just naturally, from having that happen to you, being in this education system, you're automatically in a way indoctrinated. We are living inside of a world that's been built around us. So that's part of it. The other thing is Freemasonry is worldwide. It's in power. It's a network that exists. There's a lot of people in it. There's a lot of people in high places in it. The things that I'm showing that are run by Freemasonry, from politics to sports, it's more than the numbers that I used to prove. It's the way these men pose, doing their hidden hands. It's the fact that it's known that they're Freemasons. It's the fact that they talk about it in TV. It's things like what we just saw with George W. Bush and John Kerry. MrCatI, every time he attacks, it seems that really the motivation for his attack is that I am going after Freemasonry and he wants to defend Freemasonry. Is MrCatI a Freemason? He very well might be. And perhaps he's a decent guy and a Freemason, because there's a lot of people that are in Freemasonry just because they want to be part of a club. And there's a lot of low-level Freemasons that aren't connecting the picture of what their organization on a greater level is responsible for. So I don't know if that's MrCatI's motivation, but for how this can all be executed and how so many people can participate in the agenda while not being part of Freemasonry, because, we're living in a big Freemason sandbox, the hierarchy right now in this world. To climb the ladder in a lot of places, you have to become part of this network. Let's continue.
What they're saying, there may be a Masonic element in the ritual play, but it's not in the numbers. They're not putting these numbers in the people's names when they're born.
So what he's about to say about all these things not happening, well, if you actually do some research on Freemasonry, they absolutely are doing this. You know? Numbers are very important to them. You know, MrCatI attacks and says this isn't happening, but he doesn't support any of his arguments. He just says it's not true.
Born, what their street address is, or et cetera, et cetera. So these other channels.
You know, go look at the addresses on Masonic lodges throughout this nation. In the video, I'm going to find it down below in the description. I'm going to find a video I just saw yesterday done by somebody in London who walked to all of these important government buildings and showed how all of these important government buildings all have the exact same building address. And he says, is that a coincidence? You know, making the point that it's purposeful. So MrCatI is just deliberately denying the truth while denouncing my work. Which is what he does every time. And which is what all my critics do. Anytime I'm getting attacked and when I'm listening to these attacks, I'm just thinking these people are all speaking mistruths. Lying about what I am, you know, discrediting the work with no evidence to support what they're saying.
Unless you challenge them and ask them sooner or later, you should. How are the Freemasons generating these numbers in everything you claim is a result of?
So how are they doing it? Look, they built our calendar system, like I said. Gregorian 58, Calendar 58, Freemasonry 58, Secret Society 58. They have designed this world. You know, they have some greater understanding and knowledge about this than I do. I'm someone who got clued into this and has been putting the pieces of the puzzle together. You know, MrCatI needs to take notes. When I first showed up here, I had 0 subscribers. MrCatI had about 20,000. I now have more subscribers than MrCatI, and my channel is heavily suppressed. They let MrCatI's channel get views. See, he gets healthy views. Go look at the views for my videos, mostly all between 1,000 and 3,000 supposedly, where they've been ever since I had 5,000 subscribers. You know, they suppress my channel. They don't even suppress MrCatI. So anyway, my point is MrCatI, instead of just dismissing and attacking, should maybe start paying attention and applying. He might grow his base as well. And as for how, you know, they could further execute this, look, we're in the age of computers. If you program a computer and you say you want to generate news, you know, imagine that you put in inputs. I want a story with these elements. I want names equating to these numbers. And essentially you just do that to generate your news. If that sounds absurd to you, look at the world you live in. You live in a world where TV shows are made in abundance, movies made in abundance. There's all this fictional storytelling being created for your ongoing constant entertainment. You don't think the same type of industry could exist to create the daily news? That's absolutely what's going on. That's why it's Hollywood, the news, these TV shows, all mocking us, putting the truth before our eyes long in advance before it happens. So, you know, you got a network, you have computers that can do the work for you for the most part, generating the elements of the story. What's left? To hire the crisis actors to fill the parts? Plus, you consider that these people are birthing by the numbers, as well proven by my channel and other people who've applied this study, such as Dan Barrett. Dan Barrett from Nebraska that does a lot of work on the Masonic coding on the Native Americans from that part of the country. We're talking about Oklahoma, middle of the country. Geronimo dead in Oklahoma. Remember all that? 76, the Google Doodle on the tribute. What would have been the author's 76th birthday? So anyway, just use your mind. Think about what's in this world, how it could be done. It's being done, so think about how it could be done. I'm explaining how I think they're doing it. I think those are pretty logical, reasonable explanations. Let's continue.
The Freemasonry. They're not going to have a good answer for you because it's all BS to begin with. They're looking at numbers and that's all they see are numbers. And any idiot, any fourth grader can add numbers.
So, my work, first of all, is not all about numbers, and many years before I understood the significance of the numbers, I saw what was going on in this world with the lies and the mocking in the media and the agenda. And I did notice at times that certain numbers would show up a lot in media stories. If you just pay attention, you'll see how often the number 47 and 33 is written before your eyes in media stories. And these are both very important numbers to Freemasonry. 33, the number of the Master Mason. The Freemasons have Euclid's 47th problem. They're builders. Euclid's 47th problem is about how to establish foundation for a building. In Gematria, foundation equals 47. So, MrCatI, I just feel either he can't grasp it or he's in hardcore denial. And I don't know why he's so motivated to defend Freemasonry. Because if you look at the history of this country, there used to be an anti-Masonry party. And you know what? The anti-Masonry party fell apart after its leader disappeared on the date of September 11th. A lot of people think he was kidnapped by Freemasons and murdered on September 11th. And here's MrCatI saying, dates and numbers, that's not important to Freemasonry. Meanwhile, almost every Freemason lodge in the nation has a very specific address, as I've shown in several videos before. Let's finish listening to him speak for a moment here.
And add them in. Oh, look, the kill number. Oh, Freemasons.
See how he mocks me? Because what do I say? I call 44 the kill number. Because all throughout history, the number 44 has been used for killing. And earlier this year, he attacked my Antonin Scalia work because I was talking about the significance of Antonin Scalia dying on February 13th, the 44th day of the year, the day known as Lupercalia. Lupercalia equals 44, so does kill. The word ranch equals 44. He died on a ranch. After his death, about 2 weeks after his death, a story came out about how he went out with his secret society buddies, a Masonic order, hunting, And I'm just thinking about that now. MrCatI got all over that video attacking me, saying I was just making stuff up. 44 didn't have anything to do with death. These are just unreal things to say. If you're really going to be a critic of my work, how can you say 44 doesn't have anything to do with death in all that I've shown? How many people in this history's nation have died by this number 44? From sitting presidents to leaders such as Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. to so many celebrities. There must be 300 videos on my channel at least about prominent deaths connected to 44.
Oh, that's horse shit, and I'm fed up with it. Why? Because these numbers say a whole lot more than entertainment. This isn't entertainment to me. This is why I take it serious. So, a ritual was begun, a phase was initiated with the death of Janet Reno, with the departure of John Kerry to Antarctica, in accordance to the timing of 3 days.
So, he's done with his rant there against me. It could be a coincidence. He's wearing this 2 on his hat. And 2 is a number of division. It can be, meant to divide. And, again, what are the point of his words? His work is supposed to be about revealing again how the news is bogus. And he's talking about the significance of numbers, so why would he attack what I am sharing? Honestly, like I said, before he was even attacking me, I always thought his work was non-connected. Like what he's saying right now. He's saying Janet Reno, John Kerry, he just went up to Antarctica, proof that they're hiding that the earth is flat. That's essentially where he goes with this video if you watch it. And to me, I'm going, well, what do any of these things even really have to do with each other? They are hiding something up in Antarctica. Is the earth flat? I don't think the earth's flat just based on the way the sun sets over the ocean. I couldn't explain that on a flat earth. But sometimes the eyes deceive. I'm willing to be open-minded about things. I'm not going to attack him because he thinks the earth's flat. But I'm just saying, for him to come out and just be so vicious about my work and, as he was, and he's been worse in the past, it's just like, really, man? Because I think you should start paying more attention, applying my knowledge, and furthering your work. And by the way, a lot of people have disappeared in Antarctica on dates with 33 numerology, He could have added that into his presentation. I have a lot about it on my blog. Something going on with 33 up in Antarctica. Instead, in his video, he brought it up and then went on a mocking spree towards me. What was the point of that? He also asked, how could Freemasonry motivate people to work under their system? Well, again, let's remember what's all over our dollar bills. Totally coded with gematria. I have a half-hour video on all the encoding within the dollar bill. Here's the cover page of CNN this afternoon, November 18th. Trump settles. This is supposed to be the lawsuit for Trump University. Trump University has gematria of 88, just like Trump itself. In simple English, Pythagorean. Trump settles, sums to 44. About to become the 44th man to be president, the 45th president. Also within this coding, Trump settles equals 188 like Bavarian Illuminati. Established May 1st, 1776, back to 76. Cowboys and Indians from the beginning. Native genocide. Anyway, Bavarian Illuminati. Illuminati symbolism on the dollar bill. Our dollar denominations are a 1, a 2, a 5, a 10, a 20, a 50, a 100. If you add it up, it sums to 188 like Bavarian Illuminati. Important number coded all over the Trump campaign, still coded to this day in headlines, even up to today, November 18th. All of this is under the Freemasonic umbrella, and it's all been established, created, maintained, and made history by the numbers. With regards to 322 in the Bible, depending on what version you read, it can be a little bit different. New International Version, what most people have in their house. And the Lord God said, the man has now become like one of us, knowing good and evil. He must not be allowed to reach out his hand and take also from the tree of life and eat and live forever. This is Genesis 3:22, the first book in the Bible. Genesis equals 33. When you write out 33 as a word, it sums to 66. Bible 66 books in length. Anyway, first book, Genesis 3:22, about, the difference between God and man being all-knowing, becoming more like God. In the King James Bible, King James born in the year 66. The word king in Jewish gematria equals 66. King James has the same gematria as religion. MrCatI is saying it's not Freemasons. Here's a good one for you with the Bible. The original printed Bibles were called 42-line Bibles. If you read the New Testament, the Christian part, it begins with Matthew. Matthew begins with the 42 generations leading up to Jesus. 42-line Bibles. New Testament in gematria sums to 42. Freemason equals 42. History 42. Knowledge 42. His story. Is it all a coincidence? The word sin in gematria equals 42. Think about the Bible, Christianity, born sinners, believing in Jesus. Believe equals 33. 33 is the master teacher number, teacher 33. Anyway, the King James Bible translation is a little bit different. The New International Version, it says, man must not be allowed to reach out, become like the gods. In the King James Bible and the other versions, it says, and the Lord God said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil, and now, lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life, and eat and live forever. It's not as drastic. It's more like he could, become something greater than man. And I think that's what's going on with the people who run this world. They truly believe that they are greater. They're mocking us. They're using the Bible. They're using spiritual texts to code their propaganda. They're murdering people by the numbers. planned rituals over time. You know? It's a nation that began with Masons. It began with a genocide. I don't know where MrCatI comes from with his, hardcore dismissal of it being the Masons. All the numbers line up and point to Masonry. And Masonry is the only network I'm aware of in this world, that has this kind of capability, that has this kind of reach. So I don't know what MrCatI is really here for. I'm not sure he's here for the truth. I assure you I'm here for the truth, though, truth seeker. Should be apparent. All right, I hope it was all clear enough. Until next time.